This is Scott Bach-Hansen, Vice President for Cardinal Basketball Officials Association, and this video is going to be on the 7-minute pregame. We've already done a video on the 3-minute pregame. This is the 7-minute pregame. This is generally the one that is used most of the time. I do have a 12-minute pregame that I use. I'm not going to record that one in the interest of time, but I do have a 12-minute pregame, and I generally use that for if I have working with guys for the very first time. Usually that might happen in mixed crews in the state playoffs. Generally, I have at least one of my partners, if not both, we've worked together multiple times. So it's just really a refresher for us to make sure that we're aligning our minds and getting ready for what we're about to do. So during this process, I'll give you a little hint, though. One of the things that's important as a crew chief, if you're going to be giving a pregame, you really want to make sure that your team is ready to receive the pregame. They may not be on the same time as you. So one of the things that I do is if you go in at halftime or you go in at the end of the third quarter, whatever it is for you, I will walk in, and if we have a 7:30 tip, knowing we have to be on the court at 7:15, if I want a 7-minute pregame, I'm going to tell the guys, listen, we're going to start talking at 7 o'clock. And the reason I do that is because I want to leave time for feedback. I want to hear what my partners have to say, if they have any concerns or anything that they want to chime in with. And if they want to get any last-minute stretching, use the restroom, whatever it is, before we hit the court. Now, in some cases, the game can get extended. We could be a little later, depending on the scenario. So, you keep the clock in mind. But I generally start 30 minutes prior to the start of my game. So if you work that math backwards, because we have to be on the court in 15 minutes, I'm working in a 15-minute cycle. So when I get in the locker room, I'm going to say, hey, boys, just want to let you know, we're going to get together at 7 o'clock for the pregame. Now they know they can do whatever they need to do to get ready. It might be 6:40. They got 20 minutes to get their contacts in, get stretched out, loosen up, whatever they need to do to get ready. I don't want to have downtime in between, so I really want to protect their time and value it as well, because we all are creatures of habit and we like to do certain things and stretch certain ways and have enough time. So I think it's just a courteous piece of the puzzle that we can provide our crew with. So I'm going to go through the 7-minute process of my pregame checklist. And it's not exactly 7 minutes. It's about 7 minutes. And you'll see when you look at the clock. But I think it's really important to practice this and get ready for it and know how you're going to do the thing. So this is my typical pregame of 7 minutes. Now, this is only me talking. I don't have anybody else in the room with me. So there's no feedback. There's no questions. There's no interaction in between pieces. So it's just going to be me talking. And again, usually this will take about 10 minutes because you do usually have interaction back and forth. But if I was just providing a 7-minute pregame, it really helps me get ready, because I can really do this in my sleep now. But you're going to see in this pregame, I'm going to follow down the pregame side here on the left side first, and then I'm going to go through my discussion topics. And there's obviously some things that may come into play that are outside of these, but this is a pretty good mix of items. So I'm going to pause here, and then we'll start it back up. And I would say we'll be done sometime between the 11 and 12-minute mark. And hopefully that will provide you with some insights on how to do a 7-minute pregame, or in general, this is just a regular pregame. Getting ready with my crew. All right, so let's pause this and we'll get started. All right, guys, hey, let's get together real quick. We've got a little bit of time here, but we're going to get out on the court at 15 minutes. You won, you got the home, you two, you got the visitors. Let's make sure we get our team counts early. Identify your captains. You may want to ask them if they're going to go back in the locker room. Let's plan on 12 minutes. If one of the teams is going back in the locker room, we'll readjust when we get on the court. And I'll head over to the table at 10 just to make sure everything's in line there. So, hey, during warm-ups, let's just make sure we stay warm. Don't just get stagnant. Let's, not have a pulled muscle early in the game. So stay warm. Let's see if we can find any of our uniform challenges early. Okay, we want to make sure the sleeves all the same color. We know the new rule change, and everything has to line up on that. And and a side note here, if it's a girls' game, let's make sure that they're tucked in underneath. Okay, if they have those flaps in the back, tuck them in or don't wear them at all. Okay. Pay attention to the court nets. Is one net longer than the other? Is there a hole in the net? Anything goofy with that? The wires above the basket. If the ball's constantly hitting it. Check the lights in the clocks on your side as well. See if there's a light out, because sometimes, you may look and it looks like there's 3 seconds to go, but it's actually 9 seconds to go, and we get spooked because we didn't pay attention to the clock. So let's look at the clock and see if there's tenths of a second when we get down under a minute. Okay. So during warm-ups, let's make sure we pay attention to the post moves and player tendencies. Is one of those wings catching the ball and hopping? And also, let's look for left-handed shooters. Then the strike zone is going to be a little bit different for left-handed shooters, so we may want to rotate under or on top, depending on what side of the court you're on when you have that shot. So we'll go over and get the coaches at about 2 minutes. If they're together about 2:15, we may just head over a little early. We'll see. But let's pay attention to make sure the teams aren't crossing. Okay, if the teams are crossing, we're going to pause what we're doing and make sure that we're present there, okay? We talked about the rules and points of emphasis just last week at the clinic, but don't forget they got the 28-foot box all the way down, and if there is a technical foul or indirect technical foul on the head coach, they do lose the right. Let's not go rushing right in there and tell them they lose the right away, especially if it's a heated situation, if we have to assess a technical foul. You do have the warning in your back pocket. I will just tell you that I won't use it unless I think there's a technical foul, okay? I think it's important for us to be able to communicate with coaches. But if you feel the need that you want to provide an official warning, that's certainly within your guidelines now, okay? Let's just make sure that we're paying attention to the long switches, okay? Remember, if they catch the ball on a rebound, they now become the offensive team. If there's a foul, then you are not lead anymore, you're trail. So if you're lead and you call the foul, like a player control foul, illegal screen, rebounding foul, you're going to report and go all the way down if you're table side. Okay? But if there's possession, then when you call the foul, there's trail, and there's no switch. We're just going to go back to our normal spots like it's a violation. But otherwise, just let's fill in the spot and make sure we're in communication with our eyes on that. Let's also pay attention to rotation. Sometimes we can rotate too much. They're playing zone versus man-to-man. We may not necessarily need to rotate as much. They're going east-west, skip passing. Let's pay attention. If there's a 1-3-1 defense, we may need to referee a little bit higher, especially if they're trying to trap up by the division line. Okay. For substitutes, let's just make sure that we are aware that somebody might be sneaking up from us. Usually after the second free throw. So after the second free throw, sure, the trail can have the initial whistle or the C, really anybody. Let's just make sure we get the sub. And then we're going to pass it off to the center so that the trail can now move to lead and get in that correct position. All right, so as far as these teams go, we have two pretty good teams. They were both regional playoff teams last year. This is going to be a pretty good game. As far as athletes go, I had the one team in the summer league, and I had another team in the scrimmage. So they're pretty competitive. They'll get after it. They're both senior laden teams, so let's use our captains. I don't think we're going to have an issue on the court with the kids. But if somebody gets a little bit out of hand here, let's use our captains and use our coaches and assistant coaches. So as far as the coaches go, I think both are energetic. Is a good way to put it, but they're also not necessarily hard to work with. They'll engage you more than you'll want to engage them, and that's okay. But let's just make sure that they know that we hear them. We may not necessarily be able to respond right away, but just a quick head shake or a thumbs up or I got you, coach. Talk to them during dead balls. It will help you along the way. So let's just pay attention to that, okay? If the toss is bad, blow it back. Otherwise, once we get settled in, everybody check the arrow. Make sure the arrow is correct. The clock's correct. If we have a violation or a foul right away, let's just double check and make sure that the arrow is correct. Once we get in the front court, again, let's just make sure we referee the defense and look and see what they're doing. If it's a packed zone, again, we may not necessarily need to do that. Let's get our closely guarded counts early. Let's make sure we get good angles and referee the matchups in your area. Okay, let's pay attention to the matchups in your area. I always like to say, let's get them in a flow before we have any issues. Okay, so let's not necessarily throw crap into the game, but let's not let anybody get sidetracked with being hand checked or being too physical with the guards or the post play. Protect the shooter all the way up and all the way down. Okay, don't watch the ball go in. We got 2 other officials that can do that. Protect your shooter. Watch that little tummy tap or them going into the landing area, not letting the shooter have a landing area. Okay, those are big things that we're seeing more of. Block charge situation, let's just make sure that whoever's got that primary matchup has the first crack at it. If we have a double whistle, let's not commit, especially the outside official. As the lead, the play's coming to us, so we tend to be a little bit more aggressive on that. As the center and trail, let's not jump too quickly into that. Goaltending and basket interference, we could possibly have it tonight. Just make sure that we're on the same page with that. See the whole play, don't anticipate it, and don't guess on it. And same with block charge. We're not going to do that either. On the screening, we got to make sure that they're set, they're within their body frame, they're not moving. Okay, let's make sure we get that early because that can really impact the game. But again, let's not anticipate it and just guess on it. Last shot responsibilities at the end of the quarter and the half and the game. Let's just make sure we have constant communication. If it's the end of the game, we may get together and talk about things. If they have fouls to give, or the ball's going to be put in play, and those kinds of things. If you feel like you need to warn a coach, that's great. Again, you have that new rule. If you want to put it officially in the book, you can. Disqualified, injured, or bleeding player, we just make sure we go through the process. 20 seconds to replace. They can't take the shirt off on the visual confines of the court. They have to go to the locker room. And if we have any concussion situations like that, we also have to get a medical trainer, the athletic trainer or a doctor to clear them before they can come back in. Okay, if you have an issue with that, let's get together and talk. This is not a rivalry game, but they did play each other in the regionals last year, so this is going to be a fun one to get. Let's just pay attention during dead balls. Okay, watch them crossing in between quarters, game management situations. Fans, lasers. Let's use game management to take care of things. Intentional fouling of game. Remember we talked about at the clinic. They can't wrap. They can't be away from the ball. It's got to be a basketball play. So if we're getting down to the end and they're going to try and foul, let's just remind them, hey, let's make it a basketball play, guys. Basketball play. Go for the ball. Give them that opportunity. Pulling jerseys and stuff is taken care of. Let's get taunting and baiting right away. We're not going to put up with it. It's technical foul right away. We don't need to warn them for taunting and baiting. Okay, we just take care of it. If you see a kid getting a little bit sideways, let's try to get to the coach. Let them know, hey, I got a problem with number 10. Give them a chance to fix it. But if it's a taunt right on the court, right in front of you, just take care of business. Okay, we're not going to have any issues with that. And then any atypical plays at the end of the game or during the game, we're not sure about something. Let's just slow down and get together. They can't start the game without us. So if we have an issue with is it team control or not team control, are they shooting or they're not shooting, anything like that, let's just get together. So that's all I got. I'd like to hear from you guys and see what kind of feedback you guys have. Okay, so that was my 7-minute pregame, and that again, it's a general 7-minute is what I call it. 7 to 8 minutes is I think where we ended up. But I think the important thing is, I hope that you got a sense of the flow. Okay, you got a sense of the flow, and you saw that I did use. Actually, I do this every game. I go down my list just like this, and it doesn't matter if I've worked with somebody multiple times. I may, if I worked with somebody just last night and we're working again together, and it's the same crew, we may not go through the exact line-by-line items, but we're going to talk about the teams because the teams are different, the players are different, the coaches are different. They may have some impact. Hey, have you had this team? If you have, what have you seen? If they change their style, is there anything like that we have to worry about? So, I think the most important thing for us, though, as officials, is that we can't bypass this piece. Okay, there are some officials, and there's some very good and established officials that won't do a pregame. They'll just talk about plays, and then they'll give the old Big East, don't F it up. And that's not necessarily always positive. So if it's okay for you to say, hey, listen, I know you don't normally like to do pregames, but I have a few things I'd like to ask how we're going to handle. Okay? Certainly within your right to ask, and hopefully that will help. So anyway, I hope this helped. This is my 7-minute pregame. Sorry it's a 15-plus minute video, but I really wanted to set it up so you could see how it's done. And for any new official, I would put something like this together. I would put this pregame together, have it, laminate it, put it in your bag, and practice it. Practice it with some of your colleagues, some of your constituents. Practice it at home. Time yourself. See how long it's going to take you. If you say it's a 7-minute pregame, it should be a 7 to 8 minute pregame and not a 15-minute pregame. Okay, if you say it's a 3-minute pregame, it should be a 3 to 4 minute pregame and not an 8-minute pregame. So really practice that so you can get yourself in a better situation. But hopefully you found this useful and it will help you, and I hope we have a great season. So good luck, and hopefully we'll see you in the locker room here soon.